Thank you guys for tuning into a long-awaited reopening NFL season edition of the JockTalk Podcast. For those of you who don't know quite yet, my name is Matt. On the other end here is Brock. Brock, how we doing today?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Ready for this football season.
Oh, absolutely. Been a great start so far, but like I said, for those of you who are going to be new listeners or who haven't gotten to listen to us just yet, let's explain a little bit. Brock and I both grew up in Wisconsin, so obviously we're going to be a little bit biased towards all things Wisconsin for the most part. Maybe. Brock's now living in North Carolina, so you'll see him when we get to college basketball season. Maybe be a little bit biased or a lot of it biased towards the Tar Heels, but. A lot of Wisconsin sports, and that's where we're going to start off. I know, Brock, you don't get to see a lot of the Packers games anymore, but you got to catch the first one. Opening reactions from the season opener. What'd you think?
Opening reactions to that game is a win. It wasn't pretty, but I will say our defense looked a lot better. A lot of flying to the ball. You see when Russell Wilson tried to run it, we saw a bunch, like 5 or 6 guys sprinting at him. A lot more activity at the front of the line. Mike Daniels, huge game. Nick Perry started off strong. Kenny Clark with a big swat early in the game. Our D-line was very active against a pretty shitty Seahawks line, but it's good to see that our D-line is active. Our corners didn't get beat a lot, but there's always room for growth in the first game, and I think that being a good test for week 1, we passed the test.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit it on the spot. I think Mike Daniels might deserve to be the NFC Defensive Player of the Week after his performance. I mean, he was in the backfield more than Eddie Lacy was for the Seahawks last week. You mentioned it, the cornerbacks. I think if there's room for improvement anywhere, it's probably there. There were a couple plays where, thankfully, Russell Wilson missed a deep shot to Tyler Lockett when I believe it was Devon House got turned around and wasn't looking too hot. But someone tweeted, I forget who, but they just point out the fact that Nick Perry looked like an underpaid man, and the fact that he's making the kind of money he is. He didn't have the sack numbers or anything like that, but he was harassing Russell Wilson, forcing him out of the pocket all game. But like you said, overall, I think you have to start with the defense. The Packers definitely got away with a couple of breaks, basically on their first drive with Aaron Rodgers throwing what had been a pick six. I think 2 questionable calls, as Joe Buck and Troy Aikman would attest to. But you have to have a few calls or a few balls go your way, and the Packers had just that. But I mean, after that, Aaron Rodgers settled down, the defense settled down, holding one of the better tight ends in the NFL to 3 catches for 8 yards or something like that. That was a huge focus. Maybe the most impressive part of the game for me was how they held Jimmy Graham to basically nothing.
Yeah, early in the game we saw that the Seahawks punter was just destroying us. He was kicking the ball 50-plus yards every time, so pinning us back deep. So to overcome the field position battle when after like 1.5 quarters our average start was at our own 9-yard line or something along those lines, and be able to only be down 3 at half.
Yep,
it's quite an impressive thing for Aaron Rodgers in that offense. We saw Randall Cobb just show us what he's still able to do. Jordy Nelson with another big game. Devontae Adams, Martellus Bennett. Let's talk about him for a little bit.
Oh yeah.
What was your first impressions of the big man in this first Packer game for him?
From what he did statistic-wise, I couldn't care less. To be completely honest, he didn't have a good game.
He could block.
It's the attitude that he brought to the game, picking up his quarterback after. It was a clean hit. He didn't slide feet first. He slid head first, which he left himself open to the Seahawks defense. But Martellus Bennett got up, showed him, pulled a TO, and that's my quarterback. But even before that, I mean, it started with Randall Cobb on one of those first drives, just getting a flag for taunting or whatever it was out of bounds. And I was talking about it when it happened. You know what? I'll take those flags. We got the first down, so it's not like it negated a first down or a touchdown. It's the attitude that Martellus Bennett brings, and it's the attitude that looks like a lot of the Packers have kind of adapted to, and showing that they're not going to back down for anything. But I mean, yeah. If you guys can hear this, I'm sure you can. Excuse the noise in the background. My dumbass neighbors here are over there cutting down a tree. So, you know, it's 86 degrees in Wisconsin, so we're getting all of our yard work done today.
Don't blame him for that. But my take on Martellus Bennett is, like, you saw, yeah, he got that 15-yard penalty for backing up Aaron, but I'll take that. And then, what was it? The next play, he catches a good bootleg out from Aaron, catches it, run 20 yards. It wasn't just the run after catch. It was he's staying in bounds. He's taking those hits from those three defenders, and just ran him over and stayed in bounds late in the game, which, you know, a lot of other guys might have ran out of bounds, stopped the clock, take away the hit, but he wasn't afraid to put his nose in there and just stay in bounds, run the clock. That's the maturity as a player. That's the smarts as a player. That also comes from playing with a guy called Tom Brady over there in New England.
Absolutely. Like I said, the toughness that they brought, both him and Randall Cobb, and I mean, you even look at Devontae Adams. I mean, on that first series of the game that was the had been pick six, you have to show toughness, but you have to do it in a smart way. If they would have done it where they would have negated the first down or negated the touchdown, it would have been a whole new story. But there's a difference between being dumb and playing dirty and being smart and playing tough. And I think the Packers were clearly the latter. But I think, like I said, it all goes down to Aaron Rodgers being a bad man. And the defense so far, I mean, it started off good last year with great run defense, and hopefully it stays to be more of the same. I mean, we have Atlanta coming up next week in Atlanta. Definitely going to be another tough game. We know what happened the last time the Packers played Atlanta. It wasn't pretty. But before we go through and pick the rest of our predictions in terms of division winners and everything like that, why don't we just go ahead and preview that game next week? What are you looking forward to? What do you think? And are you going to be able to watch the game actually?
Oh yeah, definitely. I will be watching that game from start to finish.
Awesome.
Front row, music, commentary on, sadly, but I will watch that game in its entirety as long as it takes. I'm there. See, this is a tough game again because we saw last year we opened up at Minnesota in their new stadium. It was a loud, ruckus place, right, in their brand new stadium. Now we go to Atlanta, opening up their new stadium for the first time. It's going to be crazy. We all Packer fans, Packer players remember what happened last time we walked into Atlanta, and it wasn't very pretty, to say the least. I know it left a sour taste in my mouth, and I'm just a fan. But you know, Mr. Aaron Rodgers and the boys still have that sour taste. They know what it feels like to be blown out in a NFC Championship game and just dismantled. I expect a lot better, a lot more consistency from our offense and our defense. I think our coverages will be better, our pressure will be better. It's going to be a heck of a game. You look at the first two games we have to play. I mean, that's got to be the hardest two games of anybody's start to the regular season. And we get Seattle at home, and then we go to Atlanta. Two potential playoff teams, 1, 2, 3, 4, one of those top four guys, and we play them both in the first week. So I think if we can pull off this win in Atlanta, that could set the tone for the rest of the season, and it will be a great start to the season for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I agree. I think the offense has to be typical offense. The offense has to stay consistent. The big thing for the Packers, and it's not necessarily the obvious, you have to run the ball or anything like that, but they have to avoid 3 and outs.
Yep.
Not only because of getting in field goal range and scoring points somehow, but you have to avoid 3 and outs to give your defense a break. We know Atlanta was a high-powered offense last year. They did struggle a little bit against the Bears week 1. However, Matt Ryan came up clutch, hitting a wide-open tight end late in the game.
Wide open.
Exactly, but they did struggle nonetheless. We know Atlanta not necessarily known for their defense, so hopefully Brian Bulaga is going to play week 2. Haven't heard 100% quite yet, but that offensive line after halftime played extremely well for pass protection wise, at least in the second half of the game against Seattle. So I think if they can run the ball even a little bit, that opens up all the play action that we know Aaron Rodgers and the Packers offense is capable of. But for me, I think a big player to watch for on the defensive side of the ball, 1, you have Devon House, and 2, you have the rookie cornerback on the other side, and I think they have to come up big, playing against Mohamed Sanu and Julio Jones. So I think that those are my players to watch. They're definitely the 2 cornerbacks, and then you can throw Morgan Burnett and HaHa in there playing either deep safety or if they play in that psycho defense, coming up and playing one of those linebacker roles. Austin Hooper showed that he could be a decent tight end for Atlanta, so obviously they're going to have weapons. We just have to be able to counter that with the weapons of our own on defense.
Yeah, we saw the weapons in full effect this first week, I think. Going to that, I mean, you said the 2 big names already, Julio Jones and Mohamed Sanu, but you also got to remember Taylor Gabriel, a speedster at the slot who came up big in their playoff run last year and late in the season, and he had a decent game against the Bears. He is a speedster. They're going to try to get him in open space. I mean, he has lights out speed, but we added speed in our secondary with Devon House and Kevin King, and it should be a interesting matchup. And even your guy from last year, Tevin Coleman and Devonta Freeman, I think those 2 spelling each other out of the backfield is going to be a problem. That all in all, that Atlanta offense is a problem. But I mean, you say Atlanta's not known for their defense, but they're a solid young group of defenders. They play with a lot of fire. They play with speed. So I mean, we catch a couple of the old Aaron Rodgers 12-man play.
Oh,
Gets them every time, or the hard count. I think discipline. I think one of my main keys to the game is limit the penalties. It's going to be a hostile environment. We saw it last year in Minnesota. We didn't necessarily do a good job with communication and the flags and the penalties, false starts, offsides, etc. So we have to continue to Aaron Rodgers has to continue to get the plays out and communicate to his guys and make sure everybody's on the same page. I mean, that goes same for defense. Defense, especially in the secondary, needs to communicate as much as they can in that hostile environment. So it's going to be a fun game to watch. I know it's probably going to be the game of the week again, and Green Bay is going to be a part of it.
Absolutely. So, like I said, going back to those of you who maybe didn't catch us last season, every Packers game we'll give our prediction, and we'll give a statistic or a player to watch out for. I'll go ahead and go first. I have it 34-24 Packers. I think the offense gets rolling this week, and I'm going to go ahead and say the Packers rush for 100-plus yards as a team, whether that comes from Ty Montgomery, whether that comes from Aaron Rodgers, whether that comes from Jamal Williams. I think it remains to be seen. I do believe that Aaron Ripkowski actually plays a little bit of a bigger role this week. We didn't see him too much last week at all. So 100-plus yards as a team rushing, and a Packers 34-24 win.
Yeah, I mean that's it may not sound like a lot in the 100 yards rushing, But for Green Bay, and if you're a Green Bay fan, 100 yards is a lot.
100. Let me rephrase that. 100 yards. I'm going to rephrase that. 100 yards from the running backs.
Okay.
Forget Aaron Rodgers making magic with his legs. I have 100 yards from the position players. Excuse me, skill players.
Yeah. Well, my key factors to the game, or whatever, my key players is, again, the secondary. I think the secondary is always going to be huge. I think, especially against this Atlanta offense, they have to come up big. Otherwise, it could be another long game for Green Bay. But I expect them to come up big, and I expect a W in a hostile environment, start off 2-0. I have the final score being 28-24 Green Bay, and another barn burner of a game. I think Green Bay makes a late stop and seals the deal.
Okay. All right, so we'll have to see how those come out. What are you thinking next, Brock? Do we go ahead and give the rest of our weekly predictions, or do you want to jump through to yearly predictions next?
Let's go weekly real quick.
Weekly?
Yeah,
all right,
we can fly through this one a little bit.
All right, so we got Green Bay and Atlanta. We both have Green Bay there. Our next game we have is the Houston Texans, or actually two disappointing teams, really, really disappointing teams from week one. The Houston Texans traveling to Cincinnati to take on the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton, and the Cincinnati Bengals. I have Cincinnati in this game. I think Deshaun Watson possibly getting his first start, combined with an ineffective running game, and the fact that Leonard Fournette ran all over Houston. I think it's a big game for Jeremy Hill, Joe Mixon, and Joe Bernard. So I have Cincinnati winning this game.
I'm actually going to go Houston on this game. I think Deshaun Watson will, since I believe I did see he is starting. He is the starter for week 2. So I believe with him starting, it's going to have more of a consistent and more of a flow to the game for Houston, because they ran 2 quarterbacks, and like that Jaguars defense got a lot of fire behind them, getting those quick sacks and interception or fumbles, and got a lot out of that early. So it just fueled the fire for the rest of the game as soon as the rookie came in. So having the consistency, or the full game under his belt and coming out, I think Deshaun Watson will lead them. It's not going to be a pretty game, but I think Houston's going to take that win.
Absolutely. All right. This next game here, I was considering taking as my upset pick of the week, considering it's a home game for the New Orleans Saints against the New England Patriots. But the Patriots put up a stinker week 1, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I just can't bet against Tom Brady with all of his weapons 2 weeks in a row. I have the Patriots winning this game pretty handily. Yeah,
I also have Patriots. If New Orleans would have showed us a little something on defense against Minnesota, but they didn't.
They made Sam Bradford look like Tom Brady, so they're gonna make Tom Brady look like, video game Tom Brady.
Yeah, and that could be scary. So I'm going to England.
This next one actually is going to be my upset pick of the week. The Cleveland Browns going to the Baltimore Ravens. I have the Browns winning their first game of the year in week 2.
See, I don't think they will. I think it's going to be a good game. Again, I think that's going to be the story of the Browns year this year. Is they're going to be in a lot of games. Will they be able to beat them?
Find Browns ways to lose.
Yeah, they will. They will. Exactly. You said it perfectly. They're gonna lose the way the Browns lose. But it should be an interesting game, because Baltimore's defense showed up against Cincinnati, but who knows? After 1 week, I'm gonna go Baltimore. I think Baltimore's gonna start 2-0.
This next game here, going to your Carolina Panthers, Brock. We have Buffalo against Carolina. I actually do have the Panthers taking this game, and I think this is going to be one of the bigger point spreads or blowouts of the week. I think Carolina's going to win this one big.
Yeah, I also agree with that. I think the Panthers are going to win. There's at least going to be 14 to 21 points. I think 3 touchdown spread. One thing I did see, I got the Carolina games was not primarily on all the TVs at all the places I was at watching the Packer game. So I got to see a lot of what they are about, and they're really trying to force Christian McCaffrey on everybody. Like, I don't know if they should do that, but it's not a bad idea. I think against this Bills defense, I don't see why not to go and attack and use that speedy Christian McCaffrey and that offense. I think Cam looked a little rusty week one, missing a couple high throws, long throws, but I think he'll be back in it and ready to go against this Bills defense.
All right, next one here, I think we're both going to agree, so we'll just get to it. The Arizona Cardinals go to Indianapolis. Indianapolis probably looking like the worst team in football, sans Andrew Luck. Arizona didn't look too good either without David Johnson. I still have Arizona winning this game.
Yeah, I still have Arizona. You know, Scotty T over there isn't very good. I saw his pick sixes he threw. They weren't even close to being a good throw. Jacoby Brissett is probably going to – I think he'll draw the start, but, I mean, this is no New England Patriots offense, no Bill Belichick offense because, you know, Mr. Chuck Pagano doesn't even know who he's playing anymore. So, I'm going Arizona.
Easy enough. All right, this next game we have the Tennessee Titans, who disappointed in Week 1, going against the surprisingly 1-0 Jacksonville Jaguars. Marcus Mariota, one of my sleeper picks for MVP. I have Tennessee taking this game.
See, this is one of the tougher picks, I think, because they both match up pretty well. I mean, you looked at Jaguars defense. Yeah, they played the Colts. Or no, Houston. Sorry,
they played Tom Savage. Same things. Tom Savage, Scott Tolzien.
Yeah, same.
Understandable.
But I mean, they got a little bit of a walkthrough. But I think this should be an interesting game because Leonard Fournette. I don't know if you've seen his highlights, but he looked like a man that could play football in the NFL.
Of course, I own him on 2 of my 3 fantasy football teams.
He looked real good in his debut. So I expect them to do a heavy dosage of him running. But the key is if Marcus Mariota and that offense can find a consistency in the run game and the pass game, because that's the one thing they lacked against a average at best Oakland defense.
Agreed.
So if they can find a consistency, Titans will win. But I'm going to go Jaguars on this one. I think Jaguars are going to surprise people and go 2-0.
All right, and the division game, 2 straight division games actually. So a quick lead in the division. This next game, I think, one of the top 3 or 4 games this weekend. Minnesota, who looked great against the Saints, going to Pittsburgh and taking on the Steelers. I do have Pittsburgh winning this game. I think it's a difference of defense really. I think Sam Bradford doesn't have all day to throw. T.J. Watt looked like an early candidate for defensive rookie. I mean, forget that, defensive player of the year nonetheless. So I do have Pittsburgh winning this game.
Yeah, I also have Pittsburgh. I think Vikings got a little bit of a walkthrough also, a subpar defensive performance. But I do think Steelers will win. I think the one thing they lacked against the Browns, I know fantasy owners seen it, Le'Veon did nothing. He barely got his first touch until like 2 minutes left in the first. If you're going to win with the Steelers, you can't just take out one of your top 2 players.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to the Packers.
From your game plan.
Similar to the Packers, maybe they don't run the ball to run the ball, but even if you just run the ball to set up play action, same thing.
Yeah, but Le'Veon's a little better talent than Mr. Ty Montgomery.
Absolutely. So we both have Pittsburgh on this one next.
Yep.
I'll let you go first, Brock, here. We have the Chicago Bears who look decent, who shout out, again, North Carolina. Tariq Cohen, North Carolina A&T, looked like a young Darren Sproles. I know it's hyperbole. I mean, young, short, running back, good out of the backfield. Of course, he's going to be compared to Darren Sproles, but he looked really good. Kevin White, surprise, out for the season already, or placed on IR at least.
He's going to be. I think that's the end of his career.
So we have
back-to-back season-ending injuries.
The surprisingly not 0-1 Chicago, or the surprising that they are not 0-1. Surprising that they, I'm being sarcastic. The Bears are 0-1, and it's not a surprise to anybody, basically, is what I meant to say. Let's try that again. Going to Tampa Bay, the Buccaneers had their first game canceled because of Hurricane Irma. I know we were both big on Tampa Bay last year. Brock, how do they start this year?
With a vengeance. I think being off that week one, that's an extra week to prepare for a Bears team. So I think, and they have tape on the Bears. Bears don't have any tape on the Bucs. So I think that's an ultimate advantage straight for the Bucs. I think it's going to be the first game back home after Irma. I think there's going to be a lot of hype on this game, a lot of support for the people from Florida, and I think this will be a blowout by Jameis.
I agree.
Famous Jameis Crab Legs
Winston. That's right.
And Mike Evans, I expect a big day from that offense.
Absolutely. My fantasy, I still went 3-0 in my fantasy last week, even without Jameis and Mike Evans as my starters. But I agree. I think it's going to be a big game for both of those. This next game, again, one of the bigger games. I think, at least in my mind, we have Philadelphia going to Kansas City. Brock, what do you think?
That's a tough one because Philly looked really good. If you didn't see anything from their game, they looked really good. Carson Wentz looked amazing for a week one against a decent Redskins team. But I'm going to go with Kansas City because I just think that defense is on a whole nother level than a lot of these teams have ever seen, especially with Peters out there. Losing Eric Berry is a huge loss, though.
Absolutely.
But I think Marcus Peters will rally that team, and they will be just fine against the Eagles.
I actually have Philadelphia winning this game. You mentioned it. Carson Wentz took a huge leap forward. Yes, it's week one. Yes, it was against, I believe, Washington. A subpar defense, but I think he has another solid outing. Maybe goes for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. Maybe stays error-free. So I have Philadelphia going 2-0. Kansas City maybe taking a step back after being probably the best-looking team in week one. Next game, another team who had their week one canceled, the Miami Dolphins, with Smoke and Jay Cutler, traveled across the country to take on the Los Angeles Chargers. I have the Chargers winning this game. I think they're going to surprise some people. I don't have them making the playoffs, but I think they're right on the edge of that playoff team. But I do have the Chargers taking this game. I think Melvin Gordon has a great game. I think Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram make Jay Cutler regret coming out of retirement.
See, I'm gonna flip it around. I think Jay Cutler's gonna come out and have a decent game. I think this is, if you want to call it an upset pick of the week, because they have Jay Cutler. That's the reason. But I think Jay Cutler has something going for him. He has the arm. He still has the arm to play, and he has some fast receivers that can catch, unlike what he had in Chicago.
You actually you mentioned it perfectly, and I was hoping you were going to do that. Devontae Parker is actually my DFS star of the week. So my daily fantasy sports. He's my pick for this week to absolutely go off for the exact reasons that you said. I think Jay Cutler still has a pretty bad game, but I think he gets lucky on a 60-yard pass down the sideline.
I mean, I'm gonna say Jay Cutler throws at least 2 touchdowns. Because you got Jarvis Landry out there, you got Devontae Parker, and then you got J.J. out of backfield. I think this is one of his more complete teams since Chicago had Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey, and Matt Forte. But They were height. This is speed, and that's what wins games these days is speed over anything. So I think it's going to be a close game. But Chargers going to find a way to lose like they did against Denver. They're going to Young Ho Koo is going to get another kick block.
Okay.
FYI, that's the name of the week. Name of the NFL, Young Ho Koo.
Absolutely. That's a fantasy. His real name is a fantasy team name.
Yeah, he is now my favorite kicker in the league
of all time.
All time, probably. Yeah. But in the Hall of Fame right now.
Just based on name alone, absolutely. Next game here, I don't think it requires any kind of conversation. We have the Jets going to Oakland. Oakland.
Sure hell's Oakland wins. Jets. I don't think Jets win a game this year. They might win one.
All right.
They might win one. They play the Browns. They might win one.
On to the next game then. We have Washington, who came off a game that wasn't even as close as it looked, going to Los Angeles to take on the Rams, who looked like they had a great defense, again, albeit against Scotty T. I actually have the Rams starting 2-0 here. I think Kirk Cousins throws another red zone interception and puts Kirk Cousins and the Redskins behind. So I have the Rams.
I also have the Rams, but for a different reason. I think Todd Gurley takes that extra leap. He had an average season last year. I think so far this start of this season, he looks like a new guy. He looks like, our offense can actually do something this year. Let me try a little harder. They got Sammy Watkins too, who had a decent game. They got rid of
Jeff Fisher. So
yeah,
that helps.
And they got what's his name?
Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp. Kupp.
I mean, I thought you were going to go Robert Woods. I mean, they're basically Buffalo Bills West right now with Sammy Watkins and Robert Woods. But all right, so we're both on the Rams. This next game was a pretty a difficult one for me. We have Dallas going to Denver. Denver's defense looked good up until the last quarter. Basically, last week, their offense looked surprising. I was surprised how well Trevor Siemian played. But the weakness of their defense, if they have one, is their running game, and the Cowboys have Ezekiel Elliott. I'm going Dallas, excuse me.
Yep, you hit the nail on the head right there. It was, if Denver would have showed something against the run this year, in Week 1 against Melvin Gordon, they didn't, and that was against Melvin Gordon and the Chargers. Now you're going against Dallas Cowboys and Ezekiel Elliott. Exactly. So I sadly have to go with Cowboys.
All right, we have two more games here. This next one, the versus two 0-1 teams. We have the San Francisco 49ers going up against the Seattle Seahawks. I think, again, for me, pretty easy one. Seattle wins by at least 2 scores.
I wanted to go with the 49ers, but here's the thing with the 49ers. They always give a game to Seattle. Don't know how. Brian Hoyer's a better quarterback than what they've had in the past couple of years. Kind of. But I mean,
Kaepernick.
I mean, if he could not run the ball and actually throw the ball.
I thought you were going to say if he could not kneel while the anthem was playing. But that's another topic for another podcast.
Yeah. Anyways, I mean, Seattle's offensive line is atrocious.
Yeah.
It is terrible. They did nothing to make it better. Nothing.
I mean, they got Luke Jokel to play right guard. I mean,
okay. Okay. He was a top 5 pick. Okay.
Yeah.
But
you're bad when you can't play for Jacksonville.
Yeah. So, I mean, we pressured him with 4 guys, and Mike Daniels was pushing back 2 of them.
Yeah.
So, what do they plan on doing now if they blitz? So, I mean, but I will go with Seattle. I think Doug Baldwin is going to find an open crease, or Lockett's just going to hit that open. they need to hit Lockett. I think that's their main key is to that offense, is to get Lockett going in any which way they can do, reverse, screens, anything to get Lockett in the open field. I mean, he's a game breaker.
Absolutely.
I'm going Seattle.
All right, last game of the week. It's the Monday night game. We have the Detroit Lions traveling to New York to play the Giants. I believe the last report I saw, Odell Beckham Jr. is still questionable. If I had to guess, I would say probably will play this week. Matthew Stafford had a great game week 1. Eli Manning had an awful game week 1, but the Detroit defense isn't as good as the Dallas defense, and that's saying something. So I'm going with the Giants based on the sole fact that Odell Beckham Jr. plays in this game.
Yeah, same. I think Giants will win that game. See, coming out of the NFC North, I hate Stafford. I think he is overpaid.
Well,
but I heard Colin Cowherd this morning say, Matthew Stafford earned every penny. Well, did he?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Carson Palmer kind of gave him like 4.
I have as many playoff wins as Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, and Carson Palmer kind of just, handed the ball off to those defenders, so it's not like they did anything.
Yep.
So I'm going the Giants in this game. I think that secondary it will play a little more pissed off after the debacle because the Giants defense didn't play bad.
No, their offensive line was as bad, if not worse, than Seattle's, which is the big thing.
Yeah. So you keep Eli up as much as I'm not a fan of Eli. He's going to tear you apart. So right. I'm going Giants in this game.
All right, that is all 16. Wow, all 16 games for week 2. Let's move on to our yearly picks. Let's start with the NFC North. I'm assuming that you have the same team as I do coming out of the NFC North. They are your Green Bay Packers.
Oh yeah, I have them going 11-5. I think we will have hiccups. I know it. I'm not expecting a 15-1 season. I think we will have hiccups. We play a good team in the Steelers coming up. This week we play the Atlanta Falcons. So, if we have a couple hiccups across the way, I'm not going to be too upset about it. But I think 11-5 is a reasonable record looking at their schedule and the strength of the schedule.
Yeah, I don't quite have yet the Packers record that I have predicted. I'm thinking either probably 11-5 or 12-4, like you said, based on the schedule. I think they always have a slip-up game somewhere. But we both have the Packers. Let's move down south now. Let's go ahead and go to your neck of the woods. I do have the Falcons repeating as NFC South champs.
This is one of the tougher ones because I think you got 3 teams, obviously, that can easily take the NFC South. But I was big on them last year. I think they were 1 game, 2 games away from taking Atlanta out of the playoffs, and I think that's Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they take the South this year.
Awesome. Absolutely. I do maybe have Tampa Bay in the playoffs. We'll have to wait and see what I have for the wild card. Let's go out west. I think this one's with how Arizona looked first week. I think for me, I think it's clear and dry. I think the Seahawks run away with the NFC West.
It's tough because if you can't keep Mr. Russell Wilson healthy, that's going to be a tough time to win. And with no run game, it's going to be even harder. So,
who else are you going to take? You can't take the 49ers.
And you cross the
Cardinals
the 49ers
don't have the Cardinals don't have David Johnson, and Carson Palmer looked old. He is old, but he looked like it in his week 1. Do you go out on a limb and take the Rams?
I think the winner of this goes 8-8.
Oh, jeez.
Didn't they have a 7-9 winner a couple of years back?
A couple of years ago, they did. Yes.
You know what? Bold pick. Rams.
Oh wow.
Jared Goff takes them to the playoffs.
Okay.
Jared Goff and
right.
Sammy Watkins and Todd Gurley, the trifecta right there.
All right, the NFC East, I do have the Cowboys winning. However, if Ezekiel Elliott misses anything more than 4 games, I am changing that pick. So I have the Cowboys winning unless Zeke misses more than 4 games, whether if it's due to suspension. I actually have the Eagles winning that division, and they were my preseason pick to win that division until the Ezekiel Elliott suspension got overturned. So I have the Cowboys. Unless Zeke actually does get suspended, then I have the EAGLES Eagles.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, Zeke misses any times. I would love if Zeke missed like week 4 through 9. Love it. I don't want to see him as a Green Bay Packer fan. I don't want to see him this year. So, yeah, I have the Cowboys unless you said the suspension comes back.
Absolutely. All right, let's go ahead and do the wild card teams right away. So my first wild card team is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. My second wild card team, I did not plan on saying this, but the way that they looked the other night, I actually have the Vikings as that second wild card team. But with that, again, if Ezekiel Elliott misses more than 4 games, the Cowboys will miss the playoffs, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will sneak into the playoffs. I know we were both high on them last year. I'm high on them again this year, but there's just so many good teams. And like I said, Minnesota, with the way that their offensive line looked, albeit against the Saints, the way that Dalvin Cook looked, albeit against the Saints, and I mean Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs showed up and balled out Monday, and they did the exact same thing for most of last year. So I actually do have the Vikings sneaking into the playoffs. And again, if Zeke misses any time over 4 games, Tampa Bay will also be in the playoffs.
Yeah, my wild card teams are Atlanta. I think because they're still good. I mean, I'm not going to write them off just because they lost in the Super Bowl. I think they still make it back to the playoffs as the number 1 wild card. I think the number 2 wild card will go to Philadelphia. And I think if it doesn't go to Philadelphia, if Philadelphia goes and wins the division because Zeke is out, I will go Detroit Lions.
Okay, so we both have 2 NFC North teams possibly sneaking into the playoffs. Let's go over to the other side of the ball. Let's start off with probably one of the easier divisions to call, the AFC East. Patriots didn't look great on Thursday night. No reason to overreact when it comes to them. I have the Patriots again running away with the AFC East.
Buffalo Bills are in the top of that division right now. Just take that in for a second. But yeah,
there, Brock.
No, it's New England. It's New England's to lose. Even though they did lose a lot of wide receivers this year already. They lost Mitchell. They lost
Julian Edelman. Danny Amendola.
Yep, he's hurt for a little bit. So, I mean, Brady's going to really have to bring him out of the woodwork again. And if he can do that, I mean, you can't help but say he's the greatest of all time.
The next 3 divisions are a little bit less. You can think of any or you can call it at least a 2-team race in any of the 3 divisions. So go through them real quick here. I have the Chiefs winning the West. I think they have the best defense and offense combo. I do have the Steelers holding off the Ravens to win the North, and in the South, I have the Titans winning the AFC South just because I do not trust the Houston Texans quarterback dilemma enough to have them winning the division. So again, that's Chiefs, Steelers, Titans for me. Brock, what do you got?
I have Oakland. I think the Chiefs' big thing is Eric Berry. He's out. That hurts. He's a superstar in that secondary.
Absolutely.
And Alex Smith, I just think that was a great game from him week 1, but I don't think he'll continue. I think he goes back to being complacent and just
A game manager?
Yeah, and starts Teddy check down Jr. And then so I got Oakland in that division. Then I also have Tennessee. I think Marcus Mariota will show up. And I think right now he's the best quarterback in that division, and that's healthy. Yeah. That's healthy, and he's not the greatest quarterback, but he's the best in that division, and then that means
I
win that division.
I might even take Marcus Mariota over Andrew Luck based on just the weapons and the offensive line. I mean, you can't count on Andrew Luck to stay healthy with that crap offensive line. But
true.
So you got Oakland, and you got Tennessee. What do you got for the North? Not the Browns, right?
Not the Browns this year. Maybe next year. It's not Browns' time to shine. I think it's Pittsburgh again. I think that the addition of Joe Hayden really brings that secondary a little more veteran mentality and a little more savviness to them. I think he's going to be.
Is that the Chuck Woodson effect coming into place in Pittsburgh?
It could be. I mean, that was a young secondary, a young defense. I mean, like you already pointed out, T.J. Watt. He can play. He's not just he's just JJ's brother. He's not one of those. He can play. He can play football. So I think that defense, with the addition of T.J. Watt and Joe Hayden, could be a big key to the Steelers' winning that division. Because I think we both know Big Ben's going to go out at least a couple games. I think it just happens. I think he just gets hurt. He's going to tweak an ankle, tweak a shoulder, and he's going to be out 2 games, and that defense is going to have to win some games. And I think they are capable to do that with that defense.
I agree. So wild card teams then. I do have your division-winning Oakland Raiders getting the first wild card spot. I just think that they're too good. Not to excuse that, for those of you who don't know, that was your Carlos moment of the week, getting excited for some reason there inside the household. But my second wild card team is going to be the Houston Texans.
Oh, wow.
I don't trust their quarterback situation enough to win the division, but I do trust that defense and that offense and that quarterback enough to win that second wild card spot. My second team here was going to be the San Diego Chargers, but I just could not pull the trigger on Phillip Rivers not throwing a shit ton of interceptions.
Yeah, my 2 teams I think are going to be Baltimore Ravens, and the Kansas City Chiefs. I think they will do enough to win games, and Baltimore, I think if that defense can play like it did week 1, I think they'll be just fine.
All right. We're going to finish up with awards here now, Brock. We got MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year. For me, it comes down to, you guys, I told you at the beginning, we are Packers through and through. I think Aaron Rodgers is a bad man. I think Aaron Rodgers leads the Packers to I think Aaron Rodgers leads the Packers to the promised land, and he has a typical Aaron Rodgers season. Aaron Rodgers, 3-time, not 1, not 2, but 3-time league MVP after this year is done.
I also think so too. I mean, we posted a thing on Twitter, and I think we got a resounding amount of Aaron Rodgers, and we got a couple for Tom Brady.
I do believe we had 1 David Johnson vote.
We did, and that's sorry, but that is gone. That's out the door, unless he puts up 600 rushing yards in the 3 games he plays after he comes back.
Yeah.
That's 600 yards a game. Sorry.
Yes.
So
defensive player of the year. This player is coming from who I have playing the Packers in Super Bowl 52.
Is it 52? I thought it was 51.
Nah, I think it's 52.
Okay.
I believe, yeah, because last year was LI. So Super Bowl 52. I think I'm going out on a limb on saying this. He has, you can call him the Charlie Villanueva of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ryan Shazier is going to be the defensive player of the year.
I have Khalil Mack again. I think he's just gonna. He terrorizes the offensive lines. I think he is just a man among boys when it comes to that. Him and Von Miller are the two best in the AFC for sure, or even you can say two best in the whole NFL.
I was half expecting you to go with either J.J. Watt or Marcus Peters.
I like them both, but I just don't think J.J. Watt can't stay healthy for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, he already hurt his finger.
Yeah, and Marcus Peters. I mean, if Marcus Peters could win the MVP or the defensive MVP this year, or if it was any year, it's going to be this year because Eric Berry's out and he needs to shine.
Yeah,
he needs to shine.
Yeah, offensive rookie of the year. It goes to my second wild card team in the AFC. I have Deshaun Watson. Like I said, I wasn't high on him. I'm not high on him this week, but I think he gets it together. I have Deshaun Watson being my offensive rookie of the year.
What about your boy Kareem Hunt?
He had a great week one, but I think it's easier for a rookie quarterback to get those votes. I'm going D-Dubs.
I was high on the Jaguars early. Just the first couple games, I think Leonard Fournette will carry that team to at least 6 wins, and if he does that, because we both know Blake Bortles,
MVP Blake Bortles.
I mean, he has a better passer rating than Mr. Tom Brady. But Leonard Fournette, I think, will win the Offensive Rookie of the Year just because the pure beast mode in him and what he does week in and week out, I think will be bad news for that division.
Yeah, I mean that was my 3 picks were between Watson, Kareem Hunt, and Leonard Fournette, but I went with the quarterback. Defensive Rookie of the Year. Prior to the year, this was just a hometown pick.
Yeah.
But I have J.J. Watt. I think he cemented the early.
It's T.J.
T.J. Watt, not J.J. Watt, if that's what I said. T.J. Watt cemented himself as an early favorite for defensive Rookie of the Year. My second pick would be, my favorite player from the NFL draft, that being Chidobe Awuzie of the Dallas Cowboys. But, I have to go with T.J. Watt.
Yeah, I'm gonna go T.J. Watt also. I mean, he's from Wisconsin, but I mean, you look at the stats right away, and I mean, he was the most impressive. Unless we see Myles Garrett come out and just torture people, which he could. He really could. I think he's one of the freaks of the NFL right now. But right now, as of through week 1 or the preseason prediction, my 2 would have been Myles Garrett and T.J. Watt. But as of right now, T.J. Watt.
My other pick, and I don't know if this is like the NBA or MLB, excuse me, in terms of rookie standings, but I mean, if they consider Jalen Smith a rookie, I mean, you think back to the NBA, Blake Griffin won the Rookie of the Year in his technically second year because of injury.
Yeah.
I would say if Jalen Smith is considered that in standing, watch out for him as well with the Cowboys. But lastly, Coach of the Year, I have going to former Green Bay Packers great quarterback Doug Peterson, coach of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yep.
So I think Doug Peterson does it. I think the Eagles go at least 10-6 and sneak into the playoffs. I think Doug Peterson gets a lot of credit there.
Yeah, you took my guy too, also right there. I really do think the Eagles are going to take that step. I think Carson Wentz could even be like if they have do they have a most improved player?
I believe so.
If they do, it's going to be Carson Wentz.
Maybe.
If they do, it's Carson Wentz because I think he's just going to.
We have a most improved player award here on the JockTalk podcast, and Carson Wentz.
Shout out Carson Wentz
is right up there.
Carson Wentz.
Shout out NDSU, go Bison. Bison.
Yeah, Carson Wentz, big fan of the show. Yeah, we think.
We hope. with that,
you have any fantasy news? I know you had a good first week throughout your three leagues.
I did. Kareem Hunt, I owned in all three leagues. I was high on him from the beginning. I was high on him before Spencer Ware went down, and as soon as Spencer Ware went down, he became a must start for me. I think I mentioned it earlier. I think the Devontae Parker or Jarvis Landry, one of them will have a huge game. I'm going for Devontae Parker. And then again, I think you have to watch out for Jameis Winston. I think he is a top 3 quarterback in fantasy this week.
Just this week. What about for the rest of the year? Who? David. Okay, here's the one thing. David Johnson is hurt for a considerable amount of time. Yes. A lot of us had him. Me.
Yes.
Who do you pick up if you had him?
I know the popular pickup was Kerwin Williams back up for Arizona, but with them re-signing recently CJ2K, I don't think that's as safe as a pick. I think you can, depending on how your league is looking, you can go with the guy like we shouted out earlier, Tariq Cohen. He actually led the Bears in targets as the wide receiver. I know he's available in a lot of leagues, but I guess it's hard to go ahead and pick of any of the Patriots running backs. But I would say if James White, Rex Burkhead, or Mike Gillislee are available in any of your leagues, depending on how your league is formatted, one of those has to be a pickup for you.
Definitely.
They're low ceiling or low floor, but high ceiling. Meaning, they can go out.
Ceiling is the roof.
They could go out and get you 2 points, or they can go out and get you 14 points because they had some red zone carries. But that's who I would go after. I think, like I said, it all depends on how your league is. But I know Tariq Cohen has been a really, really, really popular one. But hopefully you have some depth somewhere at your roster where you can go ahead and make a trade. Maybe go ahead and sell high on guys like Jordan Howard or like a Kareem Hunt. If you can get a great trade for Kareem Hunt, why not? But yeah, that's definitely a tough situation.
Going on to the JockTalk Twitter feed right now, we actually have a question from one of our fans. He's a good follower of the show. Jordan Pope at JoJo for Show 5. He asked us. He wants to hear our take on all these rookie running backs and who's worth starting.
You know what? It's semi-easy. Kareem Hunt is a must-start. Leonard Fournette is a must-start. Dalvin Cook.
Flex.
Dalvin Cook is. If you Dalvin Cook, a lot of people decided to reach for. I think Dalvin Cook is a must start, whether if it's a flex or he's either an RB2 or a flex. The other rookie running back who did not get the carries and the offense was terrible was Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, if you have him, I wouldn't worry unless you are relying on him to be a starter. Then I think you're kind of out of luck. That's one of the tough situations that we haven't been able to look at yet. So I think Joe Mixon is a must roster. And then again, Tariq Cohen, I think should be owned in 85% of leagues. It could have been a fluke, but he's one of those guys who has a low floor, high ceiling. He could go out and get you 5 catches and 8 catches and rush the ball 10 times and replace of Jordan Howard. So it's great to see rookie running backs, or great to see running backs being important again, not just in fantasy but in football all around.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of rookies, and you missed one guy. What about Christian McCaffrey? You think he's a starter?
How do I miss him? I think if you drafted Christian McCaffrey, he's a must start based on where he was going in drafts. He was probably your second running back taken. So unless you have a better option, I think he's a must start as well.
Definitely. Well, we are going to save our next question for another show, because I know we're running out on time. And this question is a huge question in the NFL right now. We'll save that up for debate next time.
Who knows, by then this situation might be resolved and this player could be on a team somewhere.
It should be. But we'll leave that up to the... Who is that player? We'll let you guys decide. Like, subscribe, comment. Share us with your friends. If you like us, fuck yeah. If you don't,
fuck you.
You didn't even make this far. You didn't make it this far into the video.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Fuck you.
And as always, we're proud to be sponsored by, nobody, but shout out Miller Lite, delicious and nutritious. If you guys know anybody looking to go ahead and sponsor a homemade, quality run podcast, as the kids would say, get at us. Otherwise, Brock, I think that's it for me. I don't have anything else, at least.
I think that's the end of our return show for the NFL season. We hope to be back on a little more often this year. It's been a good year. It's been a long year. A lot of things happening, and I hope we can continue this. Hopefully a weekly, maybe bi-weekly, and hope to hear back from everybody and share us with friends. Let us know what you think. Any questions, comments, let us know. Add us on Twitter, comment on Facebook. You know what to do. Matt, nice talking to you again. Oh, go Pack, go.